Hi, I'm Rabbi Shmuley, and welcome to the Sensual Revolution. Make up sex, to do or not to do? That is the question. It usually breaks down according to gender. Very often when a husband and wife have a huge fight, the guy wants to use make-up sex to make everything better. In fact, believe it or not, fighting and arguments often leads to a greater sexual desire. It can actually awaken our sexual appetite for men. The reason is, as I always say, erotic desire is based on three components: unavailability, mystery, and sinfulness. When you fight, three things suddenly happen. The person you were super close to is unavailable to you. They're emotionally distant. That creates actually more desire sometimes. Number two, they become a bit more mysterious, so I didn't think they had that in them to stand up to me, to argue with me. And finally, sinfulness. Making love to them at that moment is really not on because they're angry at you. It could actually increase lust. But we shouldn't be surprised that men can feel that way, not only because of the new imposition of the three erotic ingredients of lust and desire, but also because men can often treat sex as something detached and outside of them. Remember, a man's genitalia are kind of on the outside of his body, which means that he can easily compartmentalize, or fairly easy compartmentalize, his emotions, and he can say that sex is something outside of him. It's something he does, something he engages in, something he does to someone else rather than sharing of himself. So even if he's angry or not emotionally clicked with someone, it doesn't mean that he can't perform sexually. Women see it very differently. Their genitalia are on the inside of their body. Sex is literally an act of sharing of self. It can be seen as an invasion when you're feeling distant from someone, even that you love, like a husband. Even someone you may have made love to 1,000 times. If you've just had a fight, your heart is closed, your body feels closed, the last thing you want to do is make love. So who's right? My answer actually comes in two stages. First and foremost, the wife is right. You cannot make someone have sex when they don't feel comfortable with it. That's an obvious thing. Sex must always be consensual. But even if you as a husband can cajole your wife, convince your wife, seduce your wife when she's not feeling into it so that she still eventually agrees, it's still not making love. It's not a sharing of self. It's almost an act of manipulation. Maybe you even feel more excited by her resistance and by her denial because now you have to pursue her all over again. Still not a good enough reason to have make-up sex. So first, the wife is right. It's not time to make love because you guys don't feel love. You feel anger and you feel distance. But the second stage of my answer is that the husband is right if he does things right. If he comes to his wife and says, "I've behaved like a jerk. I was mean. I was insensitive. I was unappreciative." Whatever you were guilty of, if you confess it and you express heartfelt remorse and you show your wife you want to be close to her and that's why you're holding her and that leads to make-up sex, in this case it's different because now a couple is using the strongest weapon in their arsenal, the strongest tool in their toolbox to reconnect because sex is so strong and so overwhelming and its force is so mighty that it might just be able to connect us when we've become disconnected. So, let me repeat. Should you use make-up sex? No, not immediately. Not when a woman is feeling distant, unappreciated, angry, and her heart is closed. You don't make love except with your hearts. But if you're the guy, if you're the husband, and you say to your wife, "I'm extremely sorry for what happened. I take full responsibility. Anything I said that was mean or angry, I'm not even going to say I said it in a heated moment. I'm going to apologize for it fully. I said it. I take full responsibility. I was wrong. I'm sorry if I behaved like someone who's not totally devoted to you, because I am." And if she receives that act of atonement and is open to it and wants to be held in order to be close, then make-up sex is now consensual and it's blessed. But don't think it's going to solve the problems in your relationship. Even if you have great make-up sex and you guys are swinging from the chandeliers, all you've done is pave over the crack in the road. You have not fixed it. Acknowledge that. Now that you've had sex, if it's consensual and you both feel really good about it, now that you've gotten rid of some of the negative emotions that were generated by the argument, now's the time to have that conversation. "Honey, I don't want to bring up something painful and negative right after we've made love, but let's just address this for a few minutes because we haven't solved the problem. You got angry because of X, Y, and Z. I got angry because of A, B, C. Where could we find the middle ground? Now's the time to actually discuss it without delving too deeply into it, because you don't want to undermine the closeness and intimacy that was generated through sex. But you don't want to use sex as a substitute for fixing problems. Sex should be the natural, organic outcome of a couple's closeness. It should not be used to induce an artificial sense of closeness. Which leads me to single people for a moment. You know, very often, people have sex so early in relationships as a shortcut to intimacy. By that I mean there are 4 essential steps in a man and a woman getting to know each other. First is attraction, which is a mysterious force that brings you to someone even though you know nothing about them. A man sees a woman across a pizza shop, doesn't know her name, doesn't know her religion, doesn't know her values, but he's drawn to her. And she's drawn to him. So they engage in step number 2, verbal communication. They start exchanging ideas, information. Hey, where are you from? Oh, I went to that school. And they get closer through that conversation, which brings them to step 3, emotional intimacy. They start feeling connected. They start feeling more connected to each other than other people. That's what intimacy is. It's an establishment of exclusivity. They start cordoning themselves off from the rest of society and the rest of the community to become a couple. Which leads finally to the 4th step, physical intimacy, lovemaking. Those are the 4 healthy steps of a healthy relationship. Attraction, verbal communication, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, hopefully in marriage. But what people do these days is they're lazy or they're in too much of a rush and they don't want to put the time into emotional intimacy, so they go from attraction to physical intimacy and they skip emotional intimacy, and sometimes it never even develops and they remain strangers to each other. They're using sex to create an artificial sense of closeness that will not work, and the relationship will crumble. It will, because this is a house built with no foundation. So, sex should be the organic, natural outgrowth of coming closer to each other, and it should not be used to create that closeness, which means that it shouldn't be used in make-up sex either, unless it is the outcome of an apology and a closeness that comes after a verbal atonement, after repentance, after saying you're sorry, and after trying to smooth over the jagged edges that were created by the arguments. Then you're making love because you've become closer, rather than using sex to artificially feel closer, because that feeling won't last. I'm Rabbi Shmuley, and I hope that you will continue to enjoy the sensual revolution.